Hello and welcome to the 19th video in this beginner series programming a tile puzzle game on the iPad. So in this video we're going to start implementing some of the logic to detect whether the user has won a game or not. And if we look down at the simulator here where the application is running, we can see in here that we've got the start position, and indeed the user wins when they achieve this position. So if they mix the board up like so and then shuffle the tiles around and achieve this position, then the game is won. So we'll need to write something that detects whether the game is won. And obviously that's very easy to do because the board occupants should be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and so on up to 24 here. And if they're all in a sequence like that, then we know that the starting position has been achieved, so the picture is full. So the problem is if we implement this and say, okay, check after every tile move whether the starting position has been achieved, then we can simply do this from here and back, and the program would now say, we've achieved the starting position after a tile drag, therefore the game is won. So we need some way of flagging whether we've actually started playing a game or not. And for our specification, we'll say we've started playing a game only when we've pressed easy or hard. And if we ever press reset, then we'll say we're no longer in a game. So going to the code, I've made a boolean to reflect this in gameplayLayer.h called inGame. And we're going to go into gameplayLayer.m, and where we have the easy pressed code inside the touches began, I'm just going to here say that inGame is equal to yes. And I'm going to do exactly the same thing if hard has been pressed. God, the IntelliSense is brutal. It's invasive like no other. So in-game is now yes there, and if reset is pressed, then we're going to say in-game is no. So we're not actually playing in the game. So that will prevent this problem of the user pressing reset and shuffling one tile backwards and forwards. The next thing we need is our function to actually detect whether the player has won or not. So I'm going to scroll down to just above the drag is finished function, and in here we'll start a new function and it'll return a bool, and we'll call it player wins. Now, it doesn't take any arguments or anything, and like I said, this is quite simple. We just need to see if the occupants on our board is in the order 0 up to 24. So we can simply say for int I equals 0 and I is less than 24, because remember we're going to go 0 to 23, and plus I, and then we simply need to say if board occupation at I equals I. So just to bring up the simulator again, just to doubly reinforce that, if we've got this position here, our I loop is going 0 up to 23, because remember it's 0 indexing, so this last space here is 24. And if we're in this position, our board occupants will also be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if we loop through the board in that way, then if the tiles are in the correct position, or the occupants, then the board occupants at I will be equal to I. So what we can do then here is increment a counter that I'm going to call correct. And the first thing I'm going to do at the top here, of course, is define correct and set it to 0. And now we simply need to say if correct equals 24, then return yes, otherwise we'll return no. So if all 24 of our tiles are on the starting position, index 0 to 23, correct will be 24, and we can turn yes. So this tells us that the player has won. So the next thing we need to do is we need to think about where we want to detect the player has won. And the first place you might think of putting it is actually in the touch moved after we've executed here a tile drag. And we could say below this, okay, if the player has won, then do something. In our case it will be playing a winning screen. But this isn't very good because this will play when the tile is still being dragged, even though the drag is very short. It would be nice for the tile to reach its destination and then do something with the finished. So we're actually going to do this detection inside the drag is finished. So inside the drag is finished, remember, this is where we set our is animating back to no, which allows us then to detect touches. So inside drag is finished, we can say if, and we'll say in game equals yes. So if we're playing a game, and we'll say self player wins equals yes. So if we're in a game and the player has won, then I'll put a comment in here now, play happy face animation, which will be our winning animation. And then simply from this function we'll then return for the moment. So this will play our happy face for winning and then return, which will leave is animating still set to yes, which means we won't detect any drags or touches or anything until we finish playing this happy face in animation. And when we play this happy face animation, we'll call a function at the end of that animation, which will then reset animating to yes, is animating to yes, and also reset the game board. So there's nothing really to show on the simulator in this video, it's just some preparation code. In the next video we'll set up the actual playing of this happy face animation. So thanks very much for listening, and comments, questions, criticisms welcome as always on YouTube.